This is Veterans News Radio, getting to the heart of Veterans Affairs. A program dedicated to unveiling the truth in a relentless pursuit of justice on behalf of veterans. Coming to you live from Rhode Island to the world with your host, High Speed Sal.
And welcome back to Veterans News Radio, right here on 1380 WNRI in Woonsocket, Rhode Island. Today is Wednesday, the 13th of January. Got a couple of things to talk about. I've got a Brian Sinykin coming on. He's with a group from having problems with the VA. Question mark. That's on Facebook. He's been helping out veterans quite a bit. He, in fact, is a veteran himself. I believe it was U.S. Army. Apparently, he'll be coming on at 15 past the hour, and we're going to be talking about the Veterans Choice Program. But before we get into that, I got Dennis, my co-host over here.
Good evening.
We've got a little bit of news about money and the VA.
Oh, about the Powerball?
Well, Powerball, that's, I'm going to win, okay? That's it. And if I win, everybody out there is going to get helped. Good. No greed here.
Well, this just came out today. I found it was pretty interesting. The Department of Veterans Affairs was hit again on Tuesday with concerns over mismanagement and ballooning costs of its new paperless system for processing disability claims. Now, this program, it seems, went into effect back in 2009, and since its induction, it has supposedly helped decrease the backlog of disability claims by up to 122%. However, the cost overruns are due to poor VA oversight, including numerous unplanned changes to the system and inefficient contracting. The VA is now asking, or is expected to ask Congress for an additional $1.3 billion to help offset the cost that has been mismanaged with poor contractors and computer programs.
Now I'll throw the Powerball in. Jeez, that's almost
convenient.
Come on, seriously? The VA. I want to know one thing.
Well, here's my question, and it's brought up in this article, too, that Congress made a substantial investment in the Veterans Benefits Management System, and it is still not functional 6 years later.
Yeah.
6 years, 2009. This was implemented, and 6 years later, it's still not into effect.
Since when? Since when has the VA been able to run anything? Since when? Seriously.
That's another question.
Seriously.
Which is why we have our guest on.
The VA came in, right after Lincoln, didn't they?
Yes, Lincoln started the bill to create the VA following the Civil War, only for Union veterans, as it were at that time, but so that none of the, there's a specific quote, so that he who bore battle shall not be alone. Something to that effect.
Yeah, shall not be alone. Well, I'll tell you what, the VA, since its inception.
Which, in its own inception, had its heart in the right place.
Yeah.
But
I hear you.
And the backlog reached a high point back in 2013 when 611,000 men and women that had served this country and wrote a blank check to their government, 611,000 were waiting more than 125 days apiece for VA decisions on their claims.
Mm-hmm.
Over 500,000 veterans waiting.
Well, you realize it's still that way. It was that way. It's still that way. Actually, correct. I think the numbers are almost doubled now.
Well, it took me 8 years alone just to get into the VA system after a medical discharge.
Yeah, well, we know that one too. So anyway, besides the overspending and the stupidity and the juvenile type of actions that the VA takes, now we have something else on the other side of the coin, which is a thing that's very, very interesting to me, which is Bergdahl. Remember Bo Bergdahl? The guy that deserted, and then they turned around and They traded in 5 generals that were a Gitmo, and just for him to get released after 6 of our own people were killed going to look for him?
Correct.
So what's going on with that, Dennis?
Well, it seems that his lawyer has asked the military, specifically the Army in specific, to upgrade his medal count before his trial, and they say that they claim he is eligible for the POW medal, as well as a Purple Heart, as well as the UN service medal for Afghanistan.
POW. Didn't he desert?
Well, he's claiming that he walked away from his base to aware top Army brass at a different base of issues that were going on in his fire base. However, you don't just walk away in the middle of a combat zone knowing that your next nearest base is 20 kilometers away and just walk off into the sunset.
I mean, that's ridiculous. But that's not the only thing.
Just walk off into the sunset and hope that you don't get captured.
I might have believed that, but when his old man was in the Rose Garden and he gave the Muslim victory speech in front of this other guy who's, commander and I don't know what, but anyway, and we let this guy get away with it, so you know that he was a sympathist.
Right.
Well, you know that.
The interesting thing is, and I didn't know this until recently, but Bergdahl, who's 29 years old, still remains on active duty at the joint base in San Antonio and Fort Sam Houston in Texas. I didn't realize that he was still on active duty, that he is not technically a member of the brig.
Technically, it's sort of like being in the civilian world. You're innocent until proven guilty. He's going through a court-martial. As far as I'm concerned, though, the man has no right to be wearing a uniform, nor does he have a right to be wearing any of those medals.
Well, his lawyers are contesting that the lack of ribbons that he supposedly is entitled to will cause a shift in balance of bias from his peers during said court-martial.
Go tell that to the 6 families of the guys that went looking for him.
Right.
Seriously. They got killed. They died. They will never be here again. And those 5 generals that were released, already 3 of them have already been caught doing this stuff again.
Right.
So,
which, to our listeners that might not know, there was a trade swap, I believe, in 2013 or 2014.
I think it was
5 top Al-Qaeda operatives from Guantanamo Bay were released in...
They're actually Taliban, I think, but yeah.
Taliban, but some of them have been shown through reports to already be back out in the field and joining the new threat of ISIS.
Well, of course they did. And of course we knew this was going to happen. And of course we know where that's coming from. But, I don't want to be looked at as a conspiracy theorist all the time, even though it's not a conspiracy. Well, it is a conspiracy, but it's not a theory. It's actually what's going on. But anyway, enough of that one. I say hang them, and that's the end of it. And bye-bye Bergdahl. And then we have something else. The SBA is doing something for veterans?
Correct. The Small Business Association, well, first let's back up to the background story. There's a U.S. Marine veteran, John Rafferty, who started a contracting company in the Dallas area after he had finished his small business degree at Syracuse University. On Wednesday, today, the U.S. Business Association, the SBA, launched 3 new or expanded programs based on the Syracuse University model to help grow and or start small businesses for veterans. It's definitely something that I'm going to be taking a look at and see what, and I'll give updates in the future as to what will be coming for that.
Go on.
So it's looking into getting a higher percentage of veterans in the small business community, as well as incentive benefits for more women veterans to start entrepreneurship and more training online and mentoring for people that want to become small business owners. The SBA approved $1.25 billion in loans to 4,800 veterans in the fiscal year of last year, but they're looking to expand that. So that's good. That's good.
It is good.
Currently, right now, there's 2.4 million businesses in the United States that have opened up from veterans owned and operated since 2007, which accounts for 9% of all businesses in the United States. So it's good to start seeing more help for veterans to get back out into the workforce.
Well, of course.
Which was a similar problem that we had post-World War II, if you remember, when all the guys were coming back from the European and the Pacific campaigns, and not a lot of them had workplaces saved for them anymore.
Yeah, a lot of stuff went down, and of course then you had the women also who,
Right.
who took the jobs
those
too,
are
as
the
well,
riveters
and
and
everything else, and more power to them. But anyway, we're going to go on break real quick, and we'll be back soon with our guest. Welcome back to Veterans News Radio. This is High Speed Sal. I've got our guest on the line, Brian Sinykin. You're on the air.
Hello.
Brian?
Good evening, Brian.
Here. Good evening.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you guys?
We're doing good. This is my co-host over here next to me. Well, next to me, you can't see him. Dennis. Good evening.
Hi, Dennis.
How you doing today? This evening?
Good.
Good.
All right, basically, you want to give a little bit of a rundown about your group, what you're doing, and then we'll go into what we've been talking about, actually, with the Choice Program.
Sure. We have a Facebook group called Problems with the Veterans Administration, ?
Brian, can you speak up just a little bit more? I'm sorry, with, phone lines.
Oh, hold on. Let me switch phones.
Okay.
Get off speaker. Is this better?
Yes, it is. Much better.
Okay, good. I have the earphones on backwards.
Oh, okay.
So what was your webpage again on Facebook, sir?
So it's Problems with the Veterans Administration, ?
Okay.
And if you go there, there's a join button, and you can join. And what we did starting last June, me and another veterans advocate decided we were really aggravated with things not happening on trying to solve these issues. And we started this Facebook page, and now it's just about 7 months or whatever it is later, and we're at 1,900 veterans advocates and veterans and even non-veterans that want to either be part of solving the problems or need help because the problems are causing them grief. And we're trying to get as many people that need help as we are helpers on that Facebook. And that led into the association now with Sal and his radio station and putting on these different issues, one at a time, to bring them forward to you, to the public, and to the veterans out there, so they know what the issues are, and they know what the problem is, and they can see or help with the solutions.
So it's almost as a outreach network of advocates across the country, and you can put them in contact with their local representatives to try to get them help. Is that correct?
That's what we're trying to do. And matter of fact, one issue has to do with filling out what they call a notice of disagreement when you're denied a medical benefit. We're working with the VFW and the Legion to have them make sure they're trained and that they're capable of taking on the health issues as well as disability issues.
Well, Brian, do you guys also have legal help with this as well, lawyers? that are willing to come in and give you a hand with doing this paperwork and filing it properly?
At this time, the attorneys only get involved, usually. I've got a couple of people that are fairly well known that are veterans, advocate attorneys that will step in before it's been turned on by the Board of Veterans Appeals.
Well, that's the law anyway. They have to be denied already. But I was just wondering if we had, you had some kind of help from, legal advice or services to help the person do the claim in the first place, and hopefully they didn't get turned down.
I think part of the problem with the appeals process is by the time the VA processes the claim and or denies it, by the time they process it, period, and then send out the notice of denial, the mail system, then it takes, 8 to 12 days for you to get the mail in if they send it to the correct address. I mean, I've had things sent to me that, are using a 1.5 year old address. If I've changed it in the system once, I've changed it 10 times. Where important documents do not get to the person. And then what they don't tell you is that you had, I believe it's 90 days to appeal. So by the time you get notification from some of these advocates...
You have 90 days for the NOD.
For the notice of disagreement. Correct.
Yes.
Right, and in some cases, some of these people are already beyond itself, and then you have a year that you cannot reapply for the same claim again. Are you following that a lot?
Well, look, you're talking actually about the disability end, okay? And I want to make sure we separate this. There are two different types of legal processes. They both lead to the BVA. One is for disability, where you apply for disability at the regional office in your hospital, okay? Mm-hmm. And then they take it and they make a decision on it first locally, and then they either turn you down and give you notice of the decision, or they accept it, okay? And so that's what the first process is for disability. Mm-hmm. Well, it's totally different for medical. On medical, what you do, first of all, on the medical side, you don't know you got a problem until somebody told you there's not a medical care or benefit that they're going to give you. Until they turn you down, you don't have any problem.
You had that problem with us.
Mm-hmm. But once they turn you down, they're supposed to send you a notice of decision that they turned you down to a medical benefit. They do that right away, but they're not doing it.
Which as Sal just pointed out, I had the similar situation. I was medically discharged from the Marine Corps, and it took me almost 8 years to fight the system to even get my foot in the door, because from the hospital standpoint, I wasn't disabled. From the Marine Corps standpoint, it warranted a medical discharge. So where's the crossover point?
Well, see, what should have been done that didn't happen, and that's what I'm bringing forward now to the public, and I'm telling you, if I can't go back and get this done right, is now when you get turned down, and don't get a letter telling you you've been turned down. Mm-hmm. Okay, they just tell you we're not going to let you in. Okay, I'm telling everybody at this point to fill out what they call a notice of disagreement, which is the same term it's used for disability. Disability does send you a letter. We're going to fill them out anyway, and we're going to then probably try to go after two things. First of all, the reason they turned you down. And second of all, they just violated your constitutional right to due process, because they didn't tell you, take the first step and send out that notice, which is illegal, okay? But the problem is we don't have attorneys available to do this. We now have the VFW and Legion that do this. So when you get turned down for a medical benefit, you should go to the VFW or the Legion and see if they got somebody who in that office does, at this point, somebody in that office that does medical claims, okay? And fill out the NOD for you, and then you tell them what you got turned down on. Right. They may tell you what you think he got turned down on, he really weren't turned down, or he didn't have a right to be turned down. They could say that because, I'll give you an example. Let's say you went to the doctor for hip surgery. Mm-hmm. Okay? The doctor says, I'm sorry, but you don't qualify for hip surgery. Mm-hmm. You're too old and you're too sick. And the chances of dying during that operation makes it impossible for us to do it. So you're being turned down. Now, what they should have done is send out a notice of disagreement, or a notice of decision saying exactly what he told them in person, or put in the record. And then still, somebody might get upset and say, well, I really want that operation. Well, that's something you can't fight over. The doctor has a right when it comes to surgery. If he's got medical reasons, okay, you're old, you're sick, you got this, you got that, and it makes you not qualified for that type of operation. Mm-hmm. So that's right, and you're not going to get it. But most of the other stuff, when they turn you down, the stuff I've been hearing about, you need to fight it, or you need to put in a notice of disagreement, and that's where these veterans organizations representatives will help you do that now. And that is start the step to get it corrected. Now, like what happened to you, I take it they wouldn't even give you the means test.
No.
They turned you down, or you got the means test?
No, I did not have a means test. Now, one of the things, correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, one of the things that I see that happens, and maybe not necessarily just getting the foot in the door of the medical side, but for the claims side, as far as disability, one of the problems that I see is that you go to your comp and pen. You get, if you've gone through this whole process, people know what I'm talking about, but you go to your compensation and pension appointment, and you get seen by a medical professional. The medical professional does their assessment of what's going on and what problems you have, and then they make their recommendations to the board. And then, from my standpoint, and maybe I'm a little biased here, but then they send it off to some pencil pusher in Washington or to wherever their regional office is, and that person that sits behind the cubicle looks at you as a number and then makes the decision based on what the doctor was recommending. So the final decision isn't necessarily in the doctor's hands as much as it is somebody who is not a medically trained professional gets to decide what benefits you are or are not entitled to. Do you find that?
Well, first of all, just so you understand where I'm coming from, I've handled my own disability claim. Because it was just passed by law at the time I went after it the second time. The first time I went to try to get it was like 1992, and this was like 2001, okay? And I was ineligible for it at the time in 1992. Ineligible. So I took my own case because I found it hard to find somebody to help me, and I won it. And I won it at the local level, not later on. So I understand the procedure that you just said. Now, what you want them to do is you want them to give you a decision. Because that puts them in the position of, this is the reason I'm turning you down. Right. You can take that decision and do what they've said. You go outside, you get your doctors, okay, and you get the proof to prove them wrong, okay? You then send it back and say, and you don't need the preponderance of the evidence to win here. There's a rule called the benefit of the doubt. Right. That if there's just as much for as there is against, the veteran wins. Okay? So, the most you have to prove is a tie. Well, you try to prove more than that, okay? Right. You try to give the preponderance of the evidence, which you don't need to do, but it's really good if you can, because then there's no doubt they're going to find in your favor if they go forward.
Well, I think, like you were saying, when they don't give you a notice of decision, it's to afford them the opportunity of time so that there's no paper trail showing.
Time limit. They have a time limit.
Right.
They have to get you a decision one way or the other from the time you take it. Now, what's taken a long time, and that's why they haven't been able to meet some of these limits, is the exorbitant amount of cases they've got to handle with not enough personnel. Okay? So that's taken where it could take you, it could take them, 6 months to get back to you. Well, the fact is, I've talked to our regional office here in Minnesota, and she says that's pretty much down to 60 days to get you an answer one way or another from your initial paperwork. Okay. And that's to decide whether they approved you or you're going on to the next level, which is now you've got to put together the proof and turn in, and you've got like 60 days to do it in, to answer them, give them an answer, and you notice a disagreement that I don't agree with this decision I'm going in.
Right.
But we don't have to get all of the proof in. We just have to get that letter in saying, yes, we disagree with it. Here's why. Additional evidence is on the way. Okay? And then you make sure you get it in there in the next 15 or 30 days. Okay?
Certainly.
Or less. Okay? Because then all of a sudden come back, well, we didn't hear from you, so therefore we're closing the case, or whatever they do. But the fact is, if you get this information in there, you win the case. So when you found out they told you that they don't think you're disabled, and yet you've got probably some form that you got from the military that said you were disabled. You got your military records from that form that said this is what's wrong with you?
Correct.
Okay, so you got that. Now find an outside doctor who's a specialist in that field. Spend the money to go get the physical, and maybe they'll give it to you for free. I doubt it. And they'll get it done.
For some of our listeners that might just be tuning in, could you also give them the Facebook page that you're talking about again?
Sure, be glad to. Glad you asked. It's the name of our group is called Problems with the Veterans Administration ?
All one word?
And well, yeah. It's a bunch of words, not one
Not on
word.
Facebook now. Okay.
Yeah, it's not a www address. It's the actual name of the page with separate. Yeah, it's a group.
Okay, so that was Problems with the Veterans Administration ? On Facebook.
And if you do a search on Facebook, right at the top, it says find people or groups. You put it in there, it'll show right up, and then you click on it, go out there, and you join the group, because it's a private group, and we are people we've kicked off, and there's people we haven't accepted. So it's usually they're pretty far out when we don't let it in. But normally we're letting almost anybody in, as long as they're real, and we've got real names to deal with.
Certainly. Now, Brian, we have another issue that we're actually going to be talking about, and that's about that new program that's actually been out for almost 2 years now, the Veterans Choice Program.
First of all, I want to say, before you get on to the rest, that we tried to get the director of that department of one of her people to come on. I started this on Monday. It really wasn't fair, and it didn't make it. Because you have to go to a special office and request them to come on, and they got to get approval, and we didn't make it. So I apologize for those that I said we might have somebody on here. It didn't work.
Well, that's okay, but I'm not surprised myself, because I know how to deal with public affairs.
Now, for anybody who doesn't know, Sal, what is the Choice Program?
The Choice Program, it is, well, actually, Brian knows a little more about this than many others.
Then send it off to Brian. Brian, could you explain to some of the listeners out there that might not know what the Choice Program is?
Okay. The Choice Program was passed in July of 2014 on the problem with that the VA ran into in that March of making lists to put men and women that were applying for medical benefits, like you had talked about earlier, And they were supposed to be seen within 30 days. They were supposed to get an appointment within 30 days from the time they passed the means test. Your name was passed to somebody. And that appointment had to be within a 90-day time frame from the time they gave you the appointment. So the fact is, when this scandal came about, Congress passed a bill saying that because it isn't the law from before, that if the VA can't get you an appointment in a reasonable amount of time, that they could send you out outside. So they set up this choice program, but the way they set it up after they did that you could go outside to an outside doctor. And number one, the VA read it that they made the criteria to be able to go outside very narrow, basically on this 40-mile limit that they had, okay? And they also didn't make it clear what else you could go outside for. You almost had to get an okay from your doctor to go outside to see somebody else. And so, you know, they were getting just a very few were getting two, if any, all right? Well, the choice program is there now with the right rules, which we'll go over in a while here, that now if you can't get an appointment, either from your doctor, from they said they need to see you, or if you need to go see them, even though he doesn't know you're coming in to see him, within 30 days, you then can go to the choice program office or use the 866 number and call the national line and apply to go outside to another doctor.
And it doesn't matter how far away you are, is that correct?
Basically it doesn't. They still have a 40-mile limit, but it's basically, the way it's written now is for those people that are over 40 miles, and it's not, by the way the code applies, it's the actual distance you have to drive to the VA. That's 40 miles. If you're over that, you can go outside. And that's meant to cover the people that are 40, if they're 140, or they're 540.
What about situations where certain specialties are not afforded at that particular VA?
That's all part of the new rules that they broke it out, and they will go over that now. But I'll bring it up here because we can do it this way. What they've done is they made a list of different things that you can go outside for putting, because you only have to pick one of these. You only have to pick one of these things you qualify for, one of these things they list, and the 40-mile limit was one. So if you don't qualify under that one, they got another one. Okay, and the other one says, let me read it, I just want to make sure I get it out there right. Let's say we put the 40 miles aside, now you can go see them because you're, the distance you're going to travel, your health isn't right, okay? You can't travel like this. Even 40 miles is too far, okay? The other thing is you've got a medical condition that you have to have an outside doctor for to take care of you, okay?
Yeah.
So you can go just because you need somebody outside. And the outside reason could be the doctor that's taking care of you at the VA doesn't want to take care of that condition. And let's say you want a neurological test, and he doesn't want to send you, okay? Well, if they don't take care of you there, you go outside. You got a medical condition.
Right.
So you'll apply. So the fact is, it's a lot more than just the miles now. Now it depends on medical conditions, and your condition, and being able to travel. It also can tie into how you got to travel, okay? Because maybe they got to pay for a boat to get you off your island. I mean, that sounds stupid because people live like
Well, no, especially here in New England when we have places like Block Island and Martha's Vineyard, it definitely comes into play when you might have to take a boat to get to the VA.
Ferry. In fact, on Block Island, you're not going to have anybody at all.
Now, one thing I'd like to point out for people that live in bigger states, you know, Utah, Colorado, Wyoming, it doesn't necessarily mean 40 miles or more to your VA hospital. I believe the VA also has it written in there that their clinics are also counted as within that spectrum. So if you're, you know, 39 miles from the clinic, they, tell you have to go to the clinic.
Let's look at that now, because I got this in front of me, because I want to make sure I give you, there's more than 40 miles evidence from the closest VA medical facility.
Correct.
Will include clinics. Okay? But does that clinic have the doctor that you need?
Right, well, that's the other question.
Well, that's why you didn't do the choice program. But there's an issue here. I have one of our listeners sending in a message, and this listener actually turned around and told me that they tried for 3 weeks to get an appointment through the choice program. Never got anywhere. She just gave up.
When was this?
This was, I believe, like 3 months ago.
Right. 3 months ago, the old program was in there.
Right. Okay, well, that's the old program.
Started, it didn't work.
Right. Well, there's something still not working, Brian, and actually, we're going to go to break in a couple of minutes, and when we come back from that, we're going to talk about it. The providers.
Okay, we'll get to the providers, but that's a separate issue.
Right.
Being able to go out.
Yeah, I understand that, but the thing is...
Let's not confuse the issues.
No, we're not confusing the issue, because if the providers aren't getting paid by the VA, then there won't even be a choice program anymore.
That's the problem we've got to talk about, but you've got to make sure these people understand they can go out. Now, there's another problem going on that's got to be fixed.
Right.
The first problem is they now can go, like this woman, who tried for 3 months and couldn't get it done. Now I'm seeing people getting approved to go out the same day they go in to see, so some hospitals have the choice program in the hospital, okay? Like in Minneapolis.
Okay.
But others do not.
All right, we got to pay the bills here, so we're going on break, and we'll be right back.
Just hold on 1 second.
News Radio. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Veterans News Radio, sponsored by PoisonVeterans.org. That's PoisonVeterans.org. You can go online and you can see what's going on with the situation. Brian, are you there? Okay.
So just to finish up, and then we'll talk about the problems. Let's talk about what's going. Finish up talking about what's right, so these vets can go in and get the choice program when they need it. It's a lot easier now. It's based on a number of different conditions that you don't that you can go outside, and if you need it, go use it, and you should get approved fairly quickly. Now, you want to talk about there still is a major problem. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to cover that? Do you want me to cover that, Sal, or you seem to know about it?
Well, here's the major problem that they're having. This is actually one of my providers, and I did promise her that I, would talk about it, and she's got a couple of questions on it. One of them is, why does it take so long in between authorizations? The delay in authorization means stopping care and putting patients back to square one. Sometimes it takes weeks to get an answer.
Now, on that thing about authorizations, under the new rule, they give you 60 days of continuous care on the same problem.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't need to go back and get a renewal. You only got to go back after the 60 days, because they got it 60 days because most things can be solved in 60 days. Now, if it can't be solved in 60 days, and this becomes more of a problem, then you're going to have to go back and try to work something about taking care of that condition long-term outside, which is a different issue.
Okay. The second question she had was, why is it when you call the call center, no one seems to know where anybody is? There's no directory or no one in charge. None of them seem to have supervisors, ironically. And, I hate to say this, but been there, done that, military as well. It's just pass the buck down along the line, and that's it. And this is what the providers are finding.
Well, the fact is, now this is a topic that doesn't have anything to do with this part. Okay, the fact is that if a veteran calls in, depending on where you are, you may not have a very good answering service. Well, if that happens again in Minneapolis, again, I'll give them kudos. Their answering system is very good. You ask for the department, they get you right there. You ask for a person, and most of the time they get you right there. Sometimes they've run into trouble with somebody new or whatever.
All right, well, that may be for patients call in.
For the patient. But for anybody else that tries to get hold of somebody, it's awful.
It is.
Yeah.
Well,
unless you know the person's name.
one thing that I personally ran into this past year, Brian, is I've had 2 surgeries this past year. One of them was the end of July, beginning of August on my shoulder. And I was told that the choice program would be contacting me because I'm currently 43 miles away from my nearest VA medical center.
Okay.
And that the choice program would be contacting me about setting up a physical therapy somewhere near my house for my shoulder. And then I had a follow-up appointment at physical therapy at the VA about 6 weeks later, 5-6 weeks later, and they were really impressed as to how far I was going on my physical therapy. And I said, who have you been seeing on the outside? I said, I haven't been seeing anybody. You told me that the choice program was going to call me. And then I got told from there promptly, oh no, you were supposed to call them. So there's even some confusion on the inside of who's calling who.
I want to make one thing very clear here to everybody out there, including you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? You always do the calling. If they say wait for them, don't wait.
Okay.
You call and get that appointment.
Mm-hmm.
You don't wait for the appointment. Okay? Usually what will happen, like if it's your annual physical, they send you a letter.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, you wait till you get the letter. But if you know your annual is usually in December, and it's now the middle of, to the end of November, you're going to call in and make that appointment.
Right.
Okay?
So long story short, I ended up doing my own physical therapy myself with pulleys and
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, my own personal story, which I really hate putting in our own personal stories on the air. But anyway, I always say this. They called me back in a week for me to go see a specialized clinic. But anyway, so there's good sides and bad sides from
Okay, good. I also want to say when you see your service officers at these organizations, make sure if you got a question, go in and see them. Don't call.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, that's the other
If you
thing.
call, they'll never call you back.
Of course
So
not.
go in and see them, and then get your answer.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, the biggest one that I have with the providers, again, and we have to remember one thing, Brian, we need to take care of the providers, because if that stops, then the whole choice program stops, because they can turn around actually and refuse.
Absolutely.
But, the very last question was, when calling the billing department, they can never give you information on why things are held up in the system. Since July, we're still about 5,000 of VA payments with the reduction. So there's still a lot of people out there still waiting for their money, and it's since the fiscal year and they still haven't gotten anything.
Well,
So how is this program going to run efficiently for the veteran when the providers aren't even getting taken care of?
well, what I'd say, if you can't get somebody to talk to, the name of the person who's the director of this program, her name is Christine Cunningham.
Right.
Call her office.
Right. Well, we unfortunately know how government bureaucracy works as well, though. That's
But
the
the
problem.
point is, you got the name.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can't get, if I'm a doctor and I'm trying to get an answer and not getting it, it's the same thing with Medicare.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's the same problem. Worse with them, actually.
I know it, but it's still, veterans
okay.
shouldn't be going through this. That's all I'm saying.
Well, you still got. They shouldn't go through it when they're not paid within 90 days. When I was in business, you never paid your bill when you got it for 90 days.
Right.
Okay.
That's understandable. Not for a year later, though, because that's how long they've been waiting.
But most of the time, it's 90 days or 6 months is when you get the money through Medicare, or even with the VA, it could take that long, because that's the way they pay. But if it's anything over that, that's why you should call the Directors of these departments.
Well, exactly. I've actually told these people to do that. But it's unfortunate. It really is. And, because of stupid government bureaucracy, it's going to ruin something that could possibly and potentially work very well for veterans.
Right. And in most cases, I think in most cases, I'm not going to say that. There's been problems. I don't know what's going on with the choice they pay. You're bringing this up with the choice situation. And we've got to get an answer what's going on with getting this paid. Mm-hmm. And the reason why we want to get an answer because you brought up another problem you saw today, which we don't know is true or not. Okay?
Yeah.
You saw it in Stars and Stripes,
yeah.
which are a very good magazine, but take things with a grain of salt unless I prove it myself, that they were putting money somewhere else. That was $10 billion they got from the Congress, that they're putting in other things than this program. Mm-hmm. And therefore, they're going to run out of money sooner.
Yeah.
Okay? Because the money's not going to be there. That's the concern. And they got to get an answer on that. What's going on with that?
Well, what is going on with that? In fact, it's exactly $10 billion, what I'm reading here as well. I just looked it up. What is going on with that?
I have no idea. First I heard of it was you.
Yeah. I don't know, Brian. I mean, let's just hope that this thing works, but, besides making just the choice program work, we need to make the VA work.
Well, the whole idea behind problems with the Veterans Administration is that what we formed for, Guy and I, Guy Trail Gamble was my associate. He set up the page, and I was the first member, and the whole purpose was we were pissed as veterans advocates because nothing was getting done with these issues. So we started this to gather together a bunch of people that were going to start taking action on the issue. Now we've taken the step that we're trying to organize all of the veterans Facebook groups out there to become part of this so that we're one big veterans group.
Right.
That we can start getting some power by using getting the veterans to work together. And I got to admit, trying to get all veterans to work together is like herding cats.
Yeah.
But it's got to be done. You got to try it and get the most we can to work to join and become part of a group that's big, and it's big because everybody joins it and everybody does something to be part of it, even if it's only 10 minutes a week. To fill out a just in case we want not a survey. What am I thinking? We want to turn in a petition. That's the word.
Yeah.
We want to turn in a petition, and we want 1 million petitioners on that. Not 1,000, not 5,000,
right.
Not 100,000.
Right, as many as possible.
Right, and if we go out to send out letters to these guys, to the congressmen, it's to every congressman, every senator, and every state, because there's at least 300,000 vets in every state.
Sure. Brian.
Sends out to those people.
Brian, we're going to have to put an end to this now because we're coming up to the end of the show. We're going to have to continue this, so be ready to come back on again.
I will.
Okay.
Very glad to have you on, sir.
Thanks for the call, Brian.
My pleasure. I just got hot and then you cut me off.
Right. Talk to you later.
Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
And if you want to announce next week's guests, it's David Saran. He's from South County, Rhode Island. He runs a homeless veterans organization, and basically they help out veterans and everything else. He's going to be on the show to talk about this. And so, again, his name is David Saran. He's a former military police officer. He's going to be live here in the studio to talk about what you could do to help out the veterans. It's like somewhat like Operation Stand Down, but more of a private, like real private thing that he's doing on his own free time. And he's been helping out a lot of homeless veterans as well.
All right, great. We'll be looking forward to that. And, of course, everybody stand by and stay tuned to veteransnewsradio.com. There'll be other stories coming up as well as Veterans News Radio on the Facebook page.
actually come out and check us out, like us as well.
VeteransNewsRadio.com.
Yeah, VeteransNewsRadio.com and Veterans News Radio, or VNR, on
PoisonVets.org.
on Facebook. Another thing too is PoisonVeterans.org. We ain't getting paid for this. We have a donate page on there. Anything that people can help out with, please do. We need the help. We've got a lot of fighting going on. We've got a lot of inroads going into Washington again as well. And we're just not going to stop. We're going to be relentless.
And we're on Twitter as well. We got all our links on VeteransNewsRadio.com.
Anyway, I want to wish everyone a very good week.
And a big thank you to our special guest tonight, Brian.
And an even bigger thank you to our audience. I had quite a few messages come through, and anybody I couldn't answer immediately, I will be answering you personally.
Shaping up into a good new year.
Yes, it is. This is High Speed Sal from Veterans News Radio. We're signing off. Have a great week.